Hello and welcome to episode 246 of Sudden Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and I'm a depressed Bill because of my Oklahoma State Cowboys coming up short yesterday in the Big 12 championship. You can't throw 4 interceptions and overcome that. They overdid it 3 last time. So in 2 games against Baylor, he's thrown 7 interceptions. And the other thing is not having your best running back, but I don't know if it would have mattered because their offensive line could not block Baylor. And they couldn't run the ball at all. They were very one-dimensional. I think he threw the ball 47 or 48 times.
Which is not what they want to do.
Yeah, Baylor had like 240 yards, which is less than they had the time before they lost Oklahoma State. But, I'm used to being an Oklahoma State fan, so I know that my season's going to end on disappointment, and I should be happy it didn't end last week and it ended this week. And I guess in retrospect, hoping that they were going to win that game and get in the CFP, I don't think they would have got in now because Alabama didn't lose.
Yeah, and we'll get to that game in a minute. But I mean, back to Oklahoma State, they had six goal-to-go situations in the final 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And just got stopped which is crazy. They got stopped every single time.
Yeah, and I know that running back would have got in. But, and I thought, if they had him, he was dressed on the sideline, he was in a uniform, had a helmet on. And I thought, maybe they'll put him in for one play. And they didn't do it. And I respect them for doing that, for not playing a guy that's hurt. I respect that. But I was hoping against hope that they put him in for a play.
Yeah.
But so much for that. Let's talk about the Alabama-Georgia fiasco mismatch.
It looked like you expected, if you had asked anybody other than this year what the outcome would be, that would be the outcome. Alabama throwing.
And I think if you would have said, here's the final score, and people would say, did Georgia beat them that bad?
Yeah.
Because Alabama has not looked good this year, and they looked terrible in the Iron Bowl. And all of a sudden, they looked as good as they've ever looked.
They have. But I mean, they've got awesome wide receivers once again. The best college quarterback in the country at this point, and going to win the Heisman definitely after that game.
Definitely.
And you've got that guy, Saban, who just...
Yeah. And they lost another wideout for the rest of the year, too.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. They've got all the wideouts.
They get so much talent.
And again, as I talked to you offline, I don't know if there's anybody technically worthy, but Georgia played a pretty soft schedule all year. And I needed to see Georgia do more than that to get into the championship game. I don't need to see Alabama-Georgia again because it's not a contest.
Well, you're going to see Georgia-Michigan, and the way Michigan's been playing, maybe Michigan makes that a moot point.
I don't know why, because obviously, as former Ravens coach, I've never been a Harbaugh guy or related to the Ravens coach, but I find myself, obviously Cincinnati would be the team I'd want to win, but I know that's just, it's not happening. It's fine. But if it's Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and Cincinnati, not having, I wouldn't say even a puncher's chance against Alabama, I want to see Michigan win it all. I don't know why.
Something different, yeah.
It's something different. And again, as you and Mom talked about, I knew a kid when I worked at Ohio State as a youth, and you were teaching there, and we were in the Ohio State country. We had a family that was friends with a huge Michigan fan, so that's the only connection I even have to that school. But, it's something different, and I'd like to see it.
Yeah, and at this point, if the matchups are Alabama, Cincinnati, Michigan, Georgia, that would be the line I would pick. I would pick that it would be Michigan, Alabama. And, I would hope for a good game, but I don't know. I just don't know.
Now,
whenever you think Alabama's like Jason and Friday the 13th.
They really are.
Whenever you think they're dead, they're not. And they rise up and they're more wicked than they were the last time.
And I think with Alabama, you also have that's the game every team circles on their schedule.
Yeah.
That's a team that if you beat Alabama and you go 3-9, but you beat Alabama, that keeps your job. That's the team you talk about. That's the one that gets you national headlines. That's the Sports Center game. So, they are getting everybody. it's been a decade of this, but or even longer at this point. But they are getting everybody's best game every single week, which other teams just aren't.
They are. And I'll tell you what I did learn this week. Every time they win a national championship, Saban and the team go to Habitat for Humanity and build a championship house for somebody.
And that's very cool.
That's very cool. So this would be house number 19.
Yes. And obviously,
incredible.
My most recent alma mater of UCF, where I got my graduate degree, the year that they would have been in the college playoff and they went undefeated and they beat an SEC team in the bowl game, that was a legitimate smaller school team, where Cincinnati has not been quite the juggernaut that UCF was, or even Bowling Green a couple, like some of the different, Boise State. Like Cincinnati's, obviously they've taken care of business, but they have not done it in that,
No, but the point they were making about Cincinnati is it's not a typical Power 5 team. And they said that, the average lineman is 300 pounds, 6'3". So they have a big team like you would have in a Power 5 school.
Which is
they're not like a smaller team. They're not different. So I just don't see them winning. But I'm sure we have a month to have a storyline.
But that would be, of any of the teams, that's far and away the most shocking story of the year, probably, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I assume,
and the Michigan story is probably the second most shocking.
Yeah.
And I had to watch Paul Feinbaum actually ate some crow this morning, and he's been down on them all year, and he's also been down on Cincinnati all year. And so this morning he acknowledged Cincinnati and Michigan did a great job. So
yeah, he feels very agended every time he speaks.
Yes,
like
his agenda is the SEC. Oh, and by the way, the SEC.
Yeah, and it's odd that he still gets a national platform. He should just be on the SEC network at this point, if that's all he's going to do. So I guess just to wrap up our college football talk, we're talking. We both sort of feel it's an Alabama national championship. Habitat for Humanity gets another house.
Yeah, I think Alabama plays Michigan, and as much as I would like to see somebody different win, I just cannot. It's like Belichick. I can't go against them in the biggest game of the year.
No.
I just can't.
And, probably unsurprisingly, supposedly, two coaching best buddies are Belichick and Saban.
Yeah.
And then we can transition right to Belichick, who, had the down year last year after Brady left. And then right now, they have a chance on the most exciting game of the weekend outside of, our game, but realistically nationally.
I mean, to me, I think it's the best Monday night game of the year so far.
Yeah.
Other than the opening night, which was Kansas City and Baltimore, I think.
But given the way the season has played out, 2 8-win teams, or is Buffalo 9 wins, they're a game apart. Buffalo's a half game up in the division against the surprising New England Patriots, who, they are a Belichick team. They play sound fundamental football. They're not going to beat themselves. And all that money they spent in free agency, now both those tight ends look good. Judon is Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
Judon is exceptional. He's really added to that defense. The defense played really, really well. I'm glad I picked him up for our fantasy league.
Yeah. Kendrick Bourne, even Nelson Aguilar, who, has been it's always tough to talk about somebody's career like that, but I would say, considering he was a first-round pick at USC, has been somewhat of a disappointment. He's floated around the league, but he's that deep threat that they need, He's not a great deep threat, but you got to pay attention to a guy running as fast as he does down the field. And Mac Jones has been as advertised.
Yes, he has. And, it's funny, on draft day, remember us talking?
Yeah.
And said he fell there, he's like Brady 2.0. And he comes in and just he's not flashy. He just comes in and does his job.
Yeah.
But I remember on draft day, the face he made when he was walking up because he couldn't believe all those other guys went in front of him.
No.
And that was a very Brady-esque kind of a thing.
It was. And I mean, Trevor Lawrence has been number one since he was a sophomore in high school, whenever he was in the draft. So that was the obvious pick. Zach Wilson was sort of a one-hit wonder who went second to the Jets and has had a very rocky season. Trey Lance is where they thought they were going up to grab Mac Jones, and they took Trey Lance, the rawest prospect of them all, who rarely gets on the field. I think Justin Fields has shown some signs, but...
Yeah, he's playing on a dismal team.
And again, sort of like, if you only had one car for a year, and it wasn't about money, it was about you just have this car is going to get you to work. You're probably taking the Toyota, not the Lamborghini, you know?
Yeah,
And
probably are.
Mac Jones moves well in the pocket. He processes things fast. He makes the right throws. He doesn't make mistakes. And in a bizarre way, pulling back into college football, it's made me much more potentially excited for the Kenny Pickett Pittsburgh Steelers experience if that happens.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett looked really good last night. We're going to get it. Speaking of the Kenny Pickett thing, I don't know if anybody saw the play or not, the almost fake slide.
Yeah.
And then he ran around the guy and scored. I definitely think we're going to have a rule change for that.
They should. That was a very Belichickian thing to do. That's a loophole that he exploited that, probably shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, they looked really good last night.
But again, he's a quarterback that, he's not the greatest athlete, doesn't have the best arm, but he seems to make all the right throws, processes quickly, moves well in the pocket, and can run for a first down when it's absolutely necessary. He's not going to get, he's not Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields or Josh Allen, but,
Yeah.
that might just be the best quarterback.
Him or Matt Corral. I mean, there's some real talent.
Yeah.
So hopefully the Steelers will keep losing and get a really high draft pick. And Ben supposedly has said he knows this is his last year.
Like I said, as people have heard on this podcast, I wish that was 3 years ago, but, it is what it is. Ryan Clark, has anybody watched his famous rip down of the Steelers?
I did, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he was absolutely brutal. But I saw another article by, I think, Mark Madden, infamous Steeler writer from Pittsburgh. And he's like, honestly, not that he's like, don't worry about you putting on Ben or Colbert or Tomlin. He's like, it's an organizational failure. But he's like, if you look around position by position, how many Pittsburgh Steelers would start for other playoff teams?
Yeah, Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt.
Yeah, probably Hayden.
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, and then on offense, you could argue Najee Harris and Deontay Johnson. And that's it, right?
Yeah, that's a short list. And I would debate Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, he has 107 targets this year, only one drop from 15 drops a year before. I still think he's a little, whatever. But I'm just saying if you're being completely rose-colored on the Steelers. Oh, and Chris Boswell. Yeah. That's not a very good list. I mean, as far as, expectations, this isn't a very talented team.
No, it's not.
And, because I know because I've heard,
really lacks depth.
Yeah, and it's a pseudo-bend defense on some level, I guess, because people are like, well, this is a ready-made team for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. And then a lot of people are like, are you sure?
No, it's not.
And as I look around, I'm like, Hayden's also going to be 35 next year, I think. Cam Hayward's getting up there. Tua's a question mark moving forward. So, it's going to be a very different time to be a Steeler fan for the next couple of years, I think.
And we said that at the beginning of the year.
We did.
And then we got sucked into the Buffalo win.
It was hard not to.
It was hard not to.
I mean, Buffalo, and again, as we just talked about Buffalo a few minutes ago, Buffalo was supposed to be the team that was going to run away with the AFC, barely narrowing out the Chiefs. And now they could find themselves behind the Patriots once again.
Yeah, that to me is the game of the weekend. The game of the month, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how it all plays out. But it's getting interesting. I mean, if I'm picking an MVP right now, I'm picking Aaron Rodgers.
Now, since we're here, I mean, if I was picking an MVP based on play on the field, Aaron Rodgers would be the MVP. Being it's the quarterback, it's a quarterback award. But given the negativity he caused in the offseason, do you think that the media is going to vote for him?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Terrell Owens should have been a first.
He throws his shit around.
He does.
He just, no matter what you say about him, he comes out and he wins. And it just seems like, maybe he's like Michael Jordan. He needs to fire himself up somehow, create a lot of controversy. He needs to be the underdog. He needs to be the hated guy. I don't know. Crazy.
I was also
thinking. He only talks on the McAfee show.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. I was like, he doesn't give considering the people that vote for the MVP award, he's been on Joe Rogan and he talks on the Fred McAfee show all the time. Or Pat McAfee, sorry, not Fred. I don't know who Fred McAfee is. But, he doesn't give the regular media much, if anything. So it's like he's really trying hard to be the heel quarterback, if you will.
The anti-hero. No doubt.
I feel like somebody else is really going to have to step. I mean, I think the media is just desperate for somebody else to be a legitimate candidate because I just don't think there are any others.
Yeah, they are, and then they flame out.
Yeah.
I mean, every time somebody looks like they're a world beater, then the next week they just don't show up, and he's showing up every week.
Yeah, I could have seen in a popular, which is basically pseudo-popular vote. Like, you have to be to a certain level to get into the conversation. And then after that, it becomes sort of a popular vote. Like, if Derrick Henry had continued on the season he was having, I could see the media voting for him. But, I mean, I don't see Jonathan Taylor ever making MVP.
No.
He's a very good running back, and we're very thankful he's on our fantasy football team. But he doesn't quite have that dominance. And then, like you said, it's not Dak Prescott anymore. It's hard to imagine it's Pat Mahomes. Josh Allen has had his struggles. And I just, you look around, it's certainly nobody on the Rams anymore.
No, it's crazy. I mean, it's just like Rodgers has been there consistently. They lost the first game, and they've been a world beater since.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the Rams...
What's your take on the Antonio Brown vaccination card?
Like we talked a little bit offline, like, if you gave me my vote for the best wide receiver of the past 10 years, I would pick Antonio Brown. I know he's full of all sorts of off the field and some very unsavory behavior, but he's absolutely an incredible player. When he's on that team, when he and Gronk, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans are healthy, they're a different offense. That's a Super Bowl winning team, especially with that shaky defense. And without him, they'd lose a full or half letter grade, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with Brady's influence, I don't think he's not going to play the rest of the year. I think he'll serve his 3 games and he'll be right back out on the field.
Which would leave him, 2 more regular season games in the playoffs?
Yeah. And I think he only needs week 18, I guess, now, to get back into the flow with Brady, start practicing again, and then when they really need him in the playoffs, he's going to be there. Now, moving forward, this is just one more, in that weird scale of, is this person worth the headache? And, like I said, while he's the best receiver of the past decade, I don't think he's been the best receiver of the past 2 years, and he's definitely lost a little bit. He's still great. Mm-hmm. But at some point, the equation becomes, is he worth the headache? And
yeah, I mean, you always, the one thing the most consistent thing about Antonio Brown is there's going to be a screw up.
Yeah.
Or more than one, but there's going to be something. And it's going to make no sense, and it's going to be a distraction, and it's going to cost him playing time. That's consistent. You can take that to the bank.
I've honestly been kind of shocked he hasn't been screaming bloody murder about Aaron Rodgers, essentially seemingly doing something similar, if you could argue. I know he sort of lawyered his way around his lie.
Yeah, he did.
But you could argue they did the same thing.
I mean, a fake vaccination card is physical evidence. I mean,
it is.
It's right there. And he said he was inoculated, right?
Yeah.
He never said he was vaccinated. He said he was inoculated.
Right. But, if I was an African-American wide receiver getting 3-game suspension, and on national news everybody agreed that the white quarterback lied and got no suspension,
I would be upset. There's no question.
And I'd at least try to see if I could get knocked down to 2 games or 1 game or something. I don't even know if that's on the table anymore, but
But they accepted their penalties, and you know what? And what? 2 of them are on the Bucs, and 1 was a former Buck, right?
Yeah. What feels like a very Florida thing.
It kind of says something too.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I know this. This virus came out of nowhere in the vaccination, and I have mine on my phone on an app from Louisiana, which is a little bit more, I guess, official when I go to restaurants. But I mean, at the same time, for a couple weeks when we went out, I just took pictures of my card with my phone, and I just flashed my phone screen up like a fake cop badge, and I probably could have taken Maria's pictures of her ID or her, and people would have just seen the general look of it. So it's not even, I think it's happening all the time,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously was vaccinated and did everything, but I mean,
Oh, I know we've got, we're going to New York next week, and I know we've got to have our physical card with us.
Yeah.
And I know I got to wear a mask in the theater, and I got to show the card to get into the restaurants. So But, if it's going to keep me safe and I'm going to be able to have a good time, I'm all for it. So.
And, I think like lots of people in this country, we've done the mask search. And Old Navy actually makes a pretty nice mask for a pretty cheap price.
Okay.
I mean, again, I don't know the medical grade of each of the masks, but if it's just basically keeping, the majority of stuff in and the majority of stuff out, like the Old Navy mask has been my favorite. As a larger person, 6'4", you know, some of the masks don't quite cover my whole fit. I mean, they're either riding up my chin, so I'm somewhat limited. But the Old Navy one's got a nice fit. It's a little bit, it's a good one. Again, not a sponsor of the show, but if you're still looking for masks, Old Navy, not terrible.
Good to know.
Yeah.
MLB and the lockout. One of my favorite topics ever. I just don't understand how one league and one players association can be that adversarial all the time.
All the time.
I mean, I look at the NBA, I look at the NFL, which is not. I mean, the NBA is the model because they're partners.
Yeah.
But I look at the NHL and I look at the NFL, and they're light years better than MLB. I mean, in the relationships. I mean, just they seem determined just to be adversarial.
That's exactly what it seems like from the outside.
And I support a floor, but the players, the association doesn't support a floor because of the things that could go with it. Then it means that there would be a harder ceiling, and it would mean some other things. But I think you got to make some movement. If you set the floor, that's good for everybody.
Great for everybody. It's good for the players. It's good for the perception of your team.
It's good for the fans.
Yeah.
And it's forcing people to spend it to a certain level. So I love the floor. I've always loved the floor. And then the ceiling, I mean, you set a high ceiling, and then you do like the NBA. For every dollar you're over, it's $1 that goes into the revenue sharing. It's just 1-to-1. But do something like that. If people want to exceed it, fine, let them exceed it. And make sure that money gets to be spread around in that. But then I think you also have to say, okay, this revenue sharing money, we're going to monitor what you do with it. You're going to have to submit a plan, and then we're going to monitor you on how you adhere to your plan, and then you're going to get paid. So we're not going to let you use it for other things. If you said you're going to use it for player development, building an academy at Dominican, yada, 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 which are things that can help improve your team, then that's good.
Right.
But if you're just going to use it to supplement your expenses and supplement your payroll, no, that's not what it's for. It's for you to grow your game long term. So I think there's some things that could be done, could be agreed upon, but, each side's going to have to give, and they don't want to.
And again, as every minute, as we're going to eventually talk about entertainment today, like, there's more and more out there. And the last thing baseball needs to do is, lower their standing with some of the fans, especially newer fans coming in.
You have to. I mean, you've got to. And again, if I hadn't already renewed my Pirate tickets, I think this year I would have pulled the plug just based on this.
Yeah.
And as much as I love it, but I just don't. This just nauseates me.
No, and especially because, I know the Pirates are one of the floor teams that have been, in a constant rebuild for quite a while. I mean, they have the McCutcheon years, but for the most part, they've been rebuilding for far too long. I don't know how else to say it. Like, far, far too long.
Well, other news, Tiger Woods coming out and saying that he's happy he's alive, he's happy he has a leg, and he doesn't see himself going back playing full-time on the tour, which I think was a great thing for him to say and get it out there.
Yeah.
And I think he'll probably try and play the Masters. He'll probably try and play 3 or 4 events a year. Maybe not this year, but maybe I'll probably try and play some in 2022. But it's good to know that, and it's good everybody knows it, puts it out there. But it's good that, he's acknowledging his humanity, his frailty. Yeah. And everybody else needs to acknowledge it too. I mean, he is lucky to be alive. And he is lucky to have his leg.
Very much so. And I guess as we transition to entertainment, people seem to really like the Venus and Serena story on HBO currently. So.
Is that the King Richard story?
The King Richard story, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for people that know me, my two least favorite actors on the planet are Tom Cruise and Will Smith. So I have no intention of watching it, but I hear it's quite good.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I'm not. It's not up for me. I have been enjoying The Wheel of Time.
Which is kind of shocking to hear you and Mom talk about that.
Yeah, we're not fantasy people, but it plays well for me. And I've always liked medieval times, and it kind of looks like it's set in what would be a medieval time, with swords and arrows and knights and kind of things, and magicians and witches, and I'm into it. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah, we're hoping to hop on that track quite soon, but we haven't got there yet.
Yeah, I would recommend it. I think it's very, very well done. And it comes out every new episodes are on Fridays, which makes it hard. If you're a binger, and you got to wait till it's all there to binge it. But I've kind of gotten into this serial thing, where I like the anticipation of waiting, watching it and then waiting my week and then being all excited the day it comes out. So that's very traditional in a way, but I've really enjoyed doing it that way.
Well, they've also shown that, now you and Mom can talk about the show during the week. You get to spread theories. I know Mom was always, back to the lost days, like to do deep digs online and, look at fan theories and things along those lines. Like, that's been lost. And then I think sometimes you can get too bingey, and then you're not even quite paying attention to what's, like, you're in hour 3 of a binge, and you're either not noticing things or, being too distracted. So, we've become bingers. I'm not going to pretend like we haven't in this house, but it is nice for the occasional show where it's like, oh, it's Sunday, HBO, I get to watch. Yeah. Well, I have had multiple entertainment moments.
Okay.
Well, just 2 quick classic ones. Curb Your Enthusiasm is back again. Vince Vaughn's heavy on this season, Dad. I know you're not a Curb guy, but Vince has been in every episode, and I know you like your Vince Vaughn.
I do like my Vince Vaughn.
Again, it's more Curb, and this week we also saw The Return, which is now the longest running live action comedy show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, another show I absolutely adore. And again, if you like the show, it's been on for 15 seasons. You've probably seen it already, and it's back, and it's really good. I guess my caveat show, based on the way Mom reacted, but Yellowstone is a really good show. It is a bit brutal, and some of the violence, and so that's something that just keep in mind. But Taylor Sheridan wrote it. There's a couple spin-offs, including a prequel set in the 1800s coming. It's becoming a whole...
with Sam Elliott, and I'm going to start that one. That looked really good to me.
Yeah, it's a whole Yellowstone...
Sam Elliott, Tim McGraw, and Faith Hill.
Yeah. It's a whole Yellowstone metaverse. And it's... But again, he writes really good dialogue. Kevin Costner, all the actors on the show are quality. Everybody's playing their parts really well. And it's got, the intrigue of, sort of your Sopranos-y, Breaking Bad, success. It's got all those sort of elements to it. And now my 2 surprising entertainment moments. First is the Chucky series, which was just 1 season long, 8 episodes. And I'm giving it a lot of credit because Child's Play came out in 1988, which I Googled yesterday, the original Chucky movie. And there have been, I think, 7 subsequent movies. And a lot of times when they reboot stuff for TV, they sort of throw out all the lore. This show has somehow been able to incorporate everything from 1988 to the bizarre Jennifer Tilly as herself, which she actually became. She played Chucky's girlfriend. Her voice is a doll. And then the doll took over the real Jennifer Tilly, and all that's been incorporated into the show. And they got the original voice of Chucky and all the original humor of Chucky. And again, the caveat is you probably have to be a fan of Child's Play, Chucky, but this is as good of a job as I've seen of somebody taking a 40-year-old property and somehow incorporating all the lore into it. And then
when you told me that offline, I was astounded.
And again, it's not without its flaws. Like it plays like a Child's Play movie, so you're gonna get a lot of cheesy one-liners and goofy puppet violence. So keep that caveat in mind. And then the last one, I'm shocked that I'm saying that I enjoyed this, but usually on Saturday mornings when we clean our house, we usually throw on music or we throw a sitcom on that you can just kind of watch and ignore as you're moving around the house, dusting and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And we watched the new Saved by the Bell. And I know when people, it's obviously it has some of the old cast along with an entire new group of kids, and
Ah,
it's an incredibly self-aware show and a very meta
okay.
show. I'm only using the example that's nowhere near the level of 30 Rock, but 30 Rock has all those just ridiculous, silly things happening around all
Yeah.
the characters. This show has incorporated that, something the original didn't have. And then the other thing I have to give credit for, like, I know there's a lot of backlash against, sort of youth culture and whatever you want to call it, wokeness and things along those lines. This show surprisingly handles a lot of those issues really well. I mean, one of the leads on the show is a trans girl, and they do different relationship stuff, but they never lose the humor, and they handle it in a way that was, quite frankly, shocking.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know how to. I mean, again, obviously, I was of the youth when Saved by the Bell came out, so it's sort of I'm watching Zach Morris wear a wig and everybody looking clearly their age at this point, much like I am. So it probably holds a little bit more value for someone like me that grew up watching Saved by the Bell, but it's pretty good.
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that.
Well, on Tuesday night, they're doing one of those live reading presentations, and they're doing Facts of Life, where Jennifer Aniston is playing Blair, and they're doing Different Strokes, where Kevin Hart is playing Arnold.
Huh. Okay.
So I'm probably going to check those out. I think Kevin Hart might be hilarious.
It's quite
Yeah,
possible. Yes.
It is perfect for Kevin Hart.
Very nice.
And I had a food moment. I bought on Goldbelly, I bought lasagna from, I think it's called Raffetti's in New York City. And I got a cheese lasagna that serves two and a meat lasagna that serves two for $35. And I'll tell you, it was amazing. It was really, really good. We ate the cheese lasagna the other day. So again, seeing Goldbelly's praises, Goldbelly always has great opportunities and great things to do. And it was one of the Black Friday specials, and I thought I bought it as a gift for somebody. I thought I'll try it myself too. But always, Goldbelly is near and dear to my heart.
Very nice. Well, I think games start in about an hour, depending on... No, I guess they start in an hour everywhere. It just doesn't matter where you live.
Game's starting in an hour, and I'm probably going to watch... My early game's going to be the Bengals and the Chargers. And then I'll watch the Steelers and the Ravens.
Have to.
Not sure. I think tonight is the Chiefs and somebody. I'm not positive.
That
I'm not
sounds
sure
right.
I'll watch tonight, but definitely planning to watch tomorrow night the Patriots and the Bills. That's like a must see for me.
And this just occurred to me. Usually, like, one of the talking heads will point out that, when the Steelers and the Ravens go head to head, you throw out the records. You throw out the rosters because it's just a slobber knocker of all the teams that,
Yep.
This might be the first time where you're throwing out the record of the Steelers.
Yeah. True. But the Ravens are pretty beat up, so we'll see what happens. And it's in Pittsburgh, and Ben just announced he's probably not going to play anymore, so we'll see.
Yeah.
There could be some interesting twists and turns to this one.
I think so.
College football playoff announcement coming up, but we already know the 4 teams are. So I'm going to watch it, but I'm watching it more to see what bowls the other teams are going to play in that I want to see.
Agreed. And once again, pour one out for Oklahoma State again this year.
Yep, but like I said, I'm always conditioned, so just I know my season's not going to end happy. It's just a question of how far it's going to go, that's all.
Yes, indeed. All right, so until next week, thank you for all your Patreon support. We really appreciate it. Especially as the holidays coming up, please give us some questions to answer.
Yeah. All right, everybody, have a good week.